up, everybody? Now, today I've done my normal allotment of videos already, but this one's kind of a special last-minute report. This needs to be talked about, alright? I just found this on social media right now. So, thousands flee Syrian town as Turkey launches massive military operation. This was about 6 hours ago. Turkey has launched a military operation against Kurdish fighters in northeast Syria just days after U.S. troops pulled back from the area. Warplanes and artillery have targeted militia positions in several towns in the border region of Syria. Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan announces the start of the action, said the aim was to eliminate what he called a terror corridor on Turkey's southern border. However, European countries immediately called on Turkey to halt the operation. Thousands of people fled the Syrian town of Ras Al Ain towards Hasaka province, held by the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces. That sounds Japanese, Hasaka. It's Hasaka. The Turkish airstrikes killed 2 civilians and wounded 2 others, the SDF said on Wednesday. Turkey had been poised to enter northeast Syria since U.S. troops, who have been fighting with Kurdish-led forces against Islamic State, started to leave in an abrupt policy shift by President Donald Trump. The withdrawal was criticized in Washington as a betrayal of America's Kurdish allies. A Turkish security source told Reuters the military offensive, dubbed Operation Peace Spring, opened with airstrikes. Turkish howitzer fire then hit bases and ammunition depots of the Kurdish YPG militia. The artillery strikes, which also targeted YPG gun and sniper positions, were aimed at the sites far from residential areas, the source said. Now, I was all for withdrawing from Syria. Hell, I'm all for withdrawing from the Middle East, period. But I never thought, not once thought, that we should withdraw from the area all at once in one great big motion like this. I was saying we should have minimized our presence little by little while also trading weapons to our allies so they can take care of themselves instead of us having to do it. That's what I would have done. I would have sort of weaned them off our support so we can finally get our hands out of a pie that does not belong to us. This was the wrong way to do it, Mr. Trump, Mr. President. This was absolutely the wrong way to do it. You fucked up. You done bad. Next. A Reuters cameraman in the Turkish town of Akakali saw several explosions across the border in the Syrian town of Tel Abyad, where a witness reported people fleeing en masse. Large explosions also rocked Ras Al Ain, just across the border from the Turkish town of Ceylan Pinar, a CNN Turk reporter said. The sound of planes could be heard above, and smoke was rising from building in Ras Al Ain, he said. The SDF said military positions and civilians in the city of Qamishli and the town of Ain Issa, more than 30 kilometers inside Syria, had been hit, and said there were initial reports of civilian casualties. Turkish media said mortar and rocket fire from Syria struck the Turkish border towns of Ceylan Pinar and Nusaybin. There was no immediate reports of casualties there. Amid deepening humanitarian concerns, Germany said Turkey's action would lead to further instability and could strengthen Islamic State. European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker called on Turkey to halt the military operation. Juncker said the bloc would not fund Ankara's plan in the region. If the plan involves the creation of a so-called safe zone, don't expect the EU to pay for any of it, he told the EU Parliament. So, what the EU, those globalist bastards, are telling you is that they are not going to support any kind of safety zone within sight of Ankara. They're being unhelpful, as always. Of course, I think in this case, that would be... I think that would be the right thing to do in this case. For once, the utter uselessness of the European Union in the Middle East is a good thing. I can't believe I actually just said that sentence. It's amazing, isn't it? But to finish off this article, Kurdish-led forces have denounced the U.S. policy shift as a stab in the back. Trump denied he had abandoned the forces, the most capable U.S. partners in fighting ISIS. he denies abandoning the forces. And yet, documentarily speaking, I've checked several other articles that confirm this one, which is a quotation of Reuters on the website NewsHub. How can he even begin to deny something that is so clear to anyone who actually takes the time to look? It's incredible. Now, I can apologize for this later if I need to, but I'm going to quote Jennifer Griffin. Sorry to say, Jen, I'm taking these quotes without your permission, but I think they speak a great deal in the moment. According to Jennifer Griffin, she says, "I just spoke to a distraught U.S. Special Forces soldier who's among the 1,000 or so U.S. troops in Syria tonight, who is serving alongside the SDF Kurdish forces. It was one of the hardest phone calls I've ever taken. I am ashamed for the first time in my career." She goes on to say, "This veteran U.S. Special Forces soldier has trained indigenous forces on multiple continents. He is on the front lines tonight and said they are witnessing Turkish atrocities. Turkey is not doing what it agreed to. It's horrible, this military source on the ground told me. We met every single security agreement. The Kurds met every single agreement. There was no threat to the Turks. None. From this side of the border, this is insanity. The concerned U.S. service member told me, I don't know what they call atrocities, but they are happening. This American soldier told me the Kurds have not left their positions guarding the ISIS prisoners. In fact, they prevented a prison break last night without us. They are not abandoning our side. Yet. The Kurds are pleading for our support. We are doing nothing. Troops on the ground in Syria and their commanders were surprised by the decision Sunday night of the president's decision. He doesn't understand the problem. He doesn't understand the repercussions of this. Erdogan is an Islamist, not a level-headed actor." Further, Jennifer Griffin quotes, "ACC to this U.S. soldier on the ground tonight in Syria, the Kurds are as close to Western thinking in the Middle East as anyone. It's a shame. It's horrible. This is not helping the ISIS fight. R.E. ISIS prisoners, many of them will be free in the coming days and weeks. The U.S. Special Forces soldier wanted me to know the Kurds are sticking by us. No other partner I have ever dealt with would stand by us. Disappointed the decisions coming from their senior leaders." You know, I always said I supported pulling out of the Middle East, but after this sudden revelation, this article, I am reconsidering. Of course, I never thought we should pull out all at once like this. I thought we should do it little by little. I'm actually really strongly tempted to make a dirty joke about pulling out here, but I kind of feel like that would just be in bad taste given the context of what we're discussing here. He pulled out all at once. And while I said pull out of the Middle East, particularly Afghanistan, I never thought about really pulling out of Syria or Turkey. Because that's, given in the greater nature of the Middle East, that's a whole nother theater. That's a whole nother situation. I say, leave Afghanistan alone, leave Iran alone, stop the American empire. But I would always make exception for Turkey because Turkey needed our help. But I always felt like the U.S. presence there was a bit unethical, the way we handled the combat situation. The situation needed a fix, but this was not it. Not even close to being it. This is about the worst thing you could do. This was the worst. Just pulling out all at once, chaos, madness, blood, screaming, human suffering. Ugh. I'm starting to think that man, that Donald Trump is an idiot. I am starting to really consider that he's some kind of idiot. He keeps making all sorts of mistakes in regards to our country's economic situation. He makes all kinds of childish mistakes regarding who to bring in discussions overseas in terms of diplomacy. I mean, he has so much potential as a president, but he's wasting it on bad faith decisions, on poor decisions that have not been thought out to their fullest extent. And now we're finally seeing something really devastating for it. This tears it. I'm done. Guys, I'm not doing it. I am not voting Trump in 2020. Fuck it. Just fuck it. Trump's not getting my vote. Not again. Not if he's going to keep making mistakes like this. You shouldn't have pulled out all at once. And in the case of Turkey, maybe you shouldn't have pulled out at all. See, now we're in places like Iran and Afghanistan doing the typical American interventionist thing, but not backing up a delicate situation like Turkey, which eventually would have been liked. I would have loved if we had been able to pull out, but not all at once. Not all at once. Little by little. This is a huge mistake. Trump's probably going to get a second term. And in the case of domestic policy, that would be preferable over a Democrat, but in terms of foreign policy, it's going to be an absolute shit show. Oh, my God. Oh. I need to go back to playing Doom, something bad, you guys. Anyway. Peace!